Do anything. I reserve it for family time.
You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing politics this evening because we have as our guest Alderman Manny Flores, who, of course, is a Chicago alderman. He has been an alderman. He's going on your 5th year, right?
Yes, yes.
Represents the 1st Ward. That includes Wicker Park, Bucktown, Ukrainian Village, Humboldt Park. Anything else?
Logan Square, East Village, Belmont in the north, Ohio in the south, Ashland in the east, and California Avenue on the west. And those are rough general boundaries.
All right, that's the 1st Ward. Some would say the notorious 1st Ward, because wasn't it Fred Rohde who used to run that ward?
Well, it was that was a long time ago.
But it was the 1st Ward.
Well, it was
back when men were men and women were women.
But geographically, it was not the 1st Ward. As you know, every 10 years, the maps are redistricted, and the original that original 1st Ward was a South Side ward, Jeff, and also a downtown ward that included portions of Little Italy, the UIC area, and also the Division Street, Rush Street area. Now the 1st Ward, it's a near northwest side ward, comprising a lot of dynamic neighborhoods with also a lot of history. It was a point of entry for a lot of Poles.
All right, so we get the message. It's not cleaned up. You're not mobbed up, as they'd say, and all of that. We weren't trying to suggest otherwise.
I understand.
But it's a long history. There's a long tradition to Chicago in each ward, even though it's been redistricted and changed. It is the 1st Ward. A belated Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah and a Happy Kwanzaa and Happy Secular Humanist Day for Erik Zorn and whatever out there. Our good friend Erik Zorn, who we hope will be here in January. We're hoping a lot of folks will be here. They told us to be here. Maybe even John Cass will be here in January.
Very good.
So we're taping the show on December 21st, but you're watching it in the Chicago metro suburbs just after the Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Secular Humanist Day, whatever holidays, but probably just after that, but before New Year's. And if you're watching in Chicago and have joined us in Aurora for the last year, and now our more recent viewers in Rockford, the folks will probably be seeing it the week of the 5th into the new year. And we're going to talk, don't turn that dial, because we're going to be covering state issues, and those are always exciting. Illinois is on the map. It's being discussed by every late night humorist, late night talk show, the butt of many jokes. So we'll talk about the state issues. We're going to get into national issues. And you might be wondering why, but we'll give you an answer on that as well. And we're going to talk on, surprisingly enough, with a Chicago alderman, some city issues. So the whole range, whether it's impeachment, whether it's a new senator from Illinois, whether it's a new congressman from the 5th Congressional District, whatever, whether it's a new governor for the state of Illinois, whether it's war and peace, whether it's pay to play, you're going to see it all on Public Affairs, so don't turn that dial. And our guest Manny Flores, many would know he's been on here before. We said he represents the 1st Ward. He lives himself in Wicker Park, right?
Correct.
With your young bride, Georgina, right?
Yes, yeah. Georgina and Teddy.
And Teddy, your young son.
And the teddy bear.
Rosary College grad, George Washington Law School. This is your 5th year in the city council, just re-elected in 07, right?
Re-elected in 07 and starting the 2nd term.
Okay, known as an independent, and so let's start right there. You can give us an independent analysis. Let's project forward. We're taping on the 21st, but come January 5th to year 2009, where will we be in terms of impeachment? Will Rod Blagojevich be impeached at that time, or just in the process of being impeached?
I think it'll be in the process of impeachment. I think there are still a lot of questions that need to be answered, in particular with regards to process, the standard of review, how to analyze the information and distill all of the testimony that is already being proffered and given in Springfield as we speak. Impeachment is something that we need to take very seriously. There is no real precedent for that in the state of Illinois. There is already questions, frankly, with regards to what is the standard of review. Going forward, we need to make sure that whatever process we have, that the process is one that upholds the highest level of integrity, especially given at a time now where many have become disenchanted, and rightfully so, with regards to the allegations that are being made and the recordings that have been made available and published by the prosecutor's office.
Articles of impeachment are extremely likely to issue from the House. That's the way it works. It's similar for you folks who followed the federal impeachment of President Bill Clinton. The House of Representatives issued the articles of impeachment. The U.S. Senate tried the case. Articles of impeachment issued, but the trial failed. He was not impeached. But in this case, the State House will be charged with, as you say, investigating, having testimony, and then almost surely, right, issuing articles of impeachment sometime in January. January 14th is when the new regime comes in, the new General Assembly is sworn in. The new Senate President, John Cullerton, I think, is inaugurated January 14th.
I'm not certain about that particular date,
but
certainly
so January 14th, things will be gearing up and ready to go. Is it conceivable the House could have issued the articles of impeachment to the Senate by January 14th, and then it would be in the hands of the Senate President, John Cullerton, calling it, but presiding would be Chief Justice Fitzgerald, the state Supreme Court Chief Justice, right?
Correct. And so I think, right now is the time to really, if I'm the incoming Senate President, to really have a thorough understanding and have a mechanism set in place on how to proceed. A lot of this...
The standard is it won't be high crimes and misdemeanors. It'll just be probably something like, they come up with it. There's no phrase, but the Senate can come up with a phrase like abuse of power.
Correct. Correct.
And then the Senate, they require 2/3. So the 59 senators, 40 senators would have to vote to convict for impeachment, to impeach the governor. And actually there are 37 Democrats, 22 Republicans. So if we're done on a party line, although the party line here is the Democrats have the greatest interest in impeaching Rod Blagojevich, their fellow Democrat, right?
You've seen a lot of elected officials at the state level be very open already in moving forward and expressing how they view this whole process and how they view the actions.
They want to get the guy out of town. I mean,
the actions and the
Democrats want to get Rod Blagojevich out of town because he's smelling up the Democratic Party.
And I don't know.
Putting it bluntly, isn't that their view?
Well, I don't know.
He's destroying the brand.
Well, I don't know if two things.
What do you think?
Let's take it one step at a time.
Start with smelling up the Democratic Party. Is that a question? I guess so.
Well, I think if you take a look at Barack Obama and the leader of our Democratic Party, I think that's something to be very proud of. And
nationally or Illinois?
Well, I think both. I think both. I mean, he does come from Illinois. He comes from Illinois, and we have led the charge in electing Barack Obama, and that's a great thing. So he's our leader.
Excuse me.
So
Barack Obama sat in that chair in June 27th, 2002, on this program, Public Affairs. And I asked him if he was going to be running for the U.S. Senate, and he hadn't decided. You know what he said? First, we got to get elected Rod Blagojevich. That was the words of your fearless leader, Barack Obama. So he, with other Democrats, wanted to work hard to get Rod Blagojevich elected. This was the general election.
And listen,
does that give you pause about Rod?
And I'll be the first one. Well, not Barbara. I mean, I got to.
Were you working at that time to get Rod elected?
And that's what I was going to just say. And give me a moment. I was going to say I was part of that Democratic group to help elect not only Governor Rod Blagojevich, but the entire Democratic team. And at that time, I don't think I certainly wasn't aware, and I don't think President-elect Barack Obama was also aware of some of the things that have come out, at least in the recordings. And some of the material, obviously, that's recorded is entirely new.
Some of that they knew. They knew about John Quarters Boyle,
well,
right?
You knew
John Quarters Boyle?
I did not. But
you were not involved with John Quarters Boyle.
But
he was a bad guy. He's done time now twice, but he was involved in the Blagojevich campaign, wasn't he?
That I don't know.
And they call him Quarters Boyle because this guy was embezzling so many quarters from the toll road.
Right. I do not know about Mr. Boyle's involvement with the campaign. But in terms of what is going on in the process right now, both Republican leaders and elected officials and Democratic leaders and elected officials have demonstrated a real and legitimate concern about what is taking place, just like the general public has at this point, and also the U.S. Attorney's Office, given the material and given the allegations that have surfaced, again, supported by some recordings and some also testimony that has come out in other trials. And it gives everyone a real pause and concern for what has been going on.
Okay, but roll forward, okay, so we're getting off a little bit. So this impeachment rolls forward, it goes to the Senate almost surely by January 14th or thereafter. Takes a month or so to do the trial. Could be drawn out. Rod's defense could drag it out. But it seems like by middle February and early March, the guy's probably going to be impeached and we're going to have a new governor in the state of Illinois.
I think there's a real...
That's my prediction. What's yours?
Well, I don't have...
You don't have a crystal ball?
I don't have the crystal ball where I'm going to, try to... But this is what I do believe is that we need to move forward expeditiously. We want to be cautious in making sure that we do have a due process standard in place. We want, as I indicated earlier, maintain the integrity of the impeachment process. That being said, it is in the best interest of the people of the state of Illinois to have this matter resolved and to not only ensure that we have a governor who can represent the business of the people, to do the work of the business of the people, and also taking a look at the U.S. Senate seat, and making sure that not a whole lot of time goes by between now and the moment that we have a U.S. Senator, the junior senator, working along with Senator Durbin and the rest of the delegation, moving forward President-elect Barack Obama's agenda.
Shouldn't there be a special election scheduled soon so that people can choose, both in the primary who will be running and then the general election? Isn't that the way to get the next U.S. Senator lined up out of Illinois? Or
I haven't reached my own personal final conclusion on
What's
that.
the
I will tell you,
What's the alternative?
one concern that is out there is the expense of the election. I do have an issue with having governor at this point, Governor Blagojevich, have given him the right to appoint. I don't think that that's the answer either.
Because the Senate said they're not taking him. Whoever they appoint, they're not going to take.
The Senate leadership has already...
The U.S. Senate leadership.
The U.S. Senate leadership has already expressed a real concern and has asked not to allow Governor Blagojevich to use his appointment.
So he can't do it, so why not get a special election going?
That may be the only alternative and the right alternative. As I indicated,
Some Democrats say it's the cost, $20 million, but couldn't they schedule at the same time as the municipal elections? Aren't the municipal elections in Illinois in February and April?
Jeff, it's not just a Democratic Party. I mean, I think there's some folks out there who really are looking at what will be the expense and cost.
Oh no, it's only the Democrats. No, we got to be fair on this.
I don't know. I wouldn't say. But I wouldn't just say.
Do you know any Republicans who are saying there shouldn't be a special election? Can you name one?
I just don't believe that it would just be fair just to say that it's only the Democrats who are looking at this issue and saying, and I'm sitting right here as a Democrat telling you that it may be in the best interest of the public to go by way of special election. I just haven't reached my final conclusion.
Well, that's what Dick Durbin said that, and then Harry Reid said, "What are you doing? They may elect a Republican," and all of a sudden Durbin and other Democrats who said that weren't sure.
Well, that's them. I can only speak.
Pat Quinn would hold a plebiscite to decide what his name should be, and on this issue he says, "Oh, I think maybe we shouldn't have a special election." I mean, I'm being fair here. You got to knock Pat for that, because we hope Pat would come on and explain that. But seriously, Pat is known as initiative over everything. The power to the people. And on this one, he's not going to give them a right to choose.
I think you'll find a lot of Democrats like myself who still haven't reached a conclusion, or some Democrats who are already saying, let's move forward with an election.
What do you need to know? It's December 21st.
Well, first of all, we still haven't impeached the governor. That hasn't been done. And what I'm suggesting is that we first take a look at what are all the options.
The governor would sign the bill. The governor, I think, has all but said he'd sign the bill. So even if you don't impeach him, He's not going to be appointing anybody. He knows that. And I think, so get the special election for the U.S. Senator. We're not talking about changing the governor. And I think
the number one thing here, first of all, is to make sure that we don't allow for the process to be one where there's going to be a taint, where people are going to be questioning the process, where someone will say, my gosh, who are we sending to the U.S. Senate? They are not representative of the will of the people. So we do have to make a process where everyone feels, in my opinion, included and has a right to determine who they're.
So it sounds to me like a special election.
It may be.
Well,
but as I indicated in my show, I'm not ready to say today, but it may very well be.
All right. So, but if there is a special election, then we got to talk about who the candidates might be in the Democratic primary. And do you think Valerie Jarrett might run? I mean, what came out about her from the affidavit in support of the federal complaint against Rod Blagojevich? And they didn't identify her, but it sounds like she was being put forward by Rahm Emanuel and others in the Obama administration. And it sounds like, and we have to say, well, we haven't heard, as they say, all the tapes, any of the tapes, but it sounds like the Blagojevich administration was saying, and all we get out of that is your appreciation. And they said that seemed to imply that's enough. It didn't sound like Valerie Jarrett did anything wrong there. In fact, it's right. She wanted the seat, and her supporters weren't willing to pay anything, so she withdrew. But might she be a candidate now to run for the U.S. Senate?
I think she's a woman of impeccable character and integrity. I think that she is. She has a tremendous amount of experience in government and also in the private sector, and given what she has done in working with President-elect Barack Obama, in my opinion, she would make an outstanding candidate for the Senate seat.
Okay, and Tammy Duckworth, she might be a good choice to run, right?
I think she also presents a good dynamic in that she has run for federal office before. She is she's a veteran of the Iraqi war. And I think she would also.
So who do you favor? Who would you like to see in that race? Who would be your favorite to run if it turns out there's a special election? Run for the U.S. Senate. Alderman Manny Flores. Who would you like to see running?
I like Valerie Jarrett.
You like Valerie Jarrett?
I like Valerie Jarrett.
Over Luis Gutierrez if he runs?
I like Valerie Jarrett.
Okay. Over Jan Schakowsky if she runs?
I think that Valerie Jarrett is the best candidate.
Okay.
I think that given, again, her background, her experience, she would be a consensus builder. She would be a leader that everyone could get around, at least in terms of the political component.
She's never run for office. She might be hesitant, you know. She doesn't. That might be more grime than she chooses, right?
My good friend.
It's like Carolyn Kennedy is about to get anointed in New York, right?
Well, we're not talking about anointing here. This would be a very.
This would be a
if there's a special election.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
if there's a special election, Valerie, in my opinion, Valerie Jarrett is the type of person who would run and who would do well. And I think we need now more than ever. We need to to demonstrate and support leaders, people who will have the confidence of the people and get the job done for the people.
Over those people you mentioned, over Danny Davis, who we haven't mentioned, over Dan Hines, over Alexei, all those folks, you're a Valerie Jarrett booster to run in a Democratic primary and then run and win in the general election for the U.S. Senate, right?
Yes.
Okay. But if it's appointed, if it turns out Quinn and the Democrats, and you might say Republicans, choose not to schedule a special election and they leave it to Quinn, say Rod is impeached, then Quinn makes the appointment, should he still appoint Valerie Jarrett?
You know, at that point, again, and it's an issue that you raised, and it's one that's do we want an appointment or do we want a special election?
But if it is an appointment,
it's an appointment.
We have a whole list: Jarrett, Lisa Madigan, Bill Daley, Tammy Duckworth, Luis Gutierrez, Jan Schakowsky, Danny Davis, Dan Hines, Alexei Gianoulis. My list. Sound like a reasonable list to select in terms of making an appointment, if Quinn's making the appointment?
I'm sure that there are other individuals who present some good
anybody you'd like to
qualifications.
draw her?
You know, I like to be consistent, so I'm going to go with Valerie Jarrett.
We're going with Valerie Jarrett. And the Republicans, they still exist. It's easy to forget them. Peter Roskim's, Congressman Roskim's name is thrown out as a possible to run in the Senate. It's a freebie. He can keep his congressional seat.
Well, nothing's a freebie.
Well, it costs time and effort and all that and drain, but I mean, he doesn't have to give up his seat. That's all I meant. Mark Kirk wouldn't have to give up his seat in the 10th. Tom Cross wouldn't have to give up his state House seat. Christine Radonio, her Senate seat or her Senate Republican leadership. Ron Gidwitz, Jim Durkin, all sound like possible candidates, right?
Their names have been.
But the fear, it's said, among Democrats is if this kind of pollution has come out about the Democratic Party from Rod Blagojevich, even though this is viewed as a very strong blue state, Peter Ruskin, Mark Kirk, Tom Cross could win in this kind of race. And you could get a Republican senator coming out of Illinois. Well, you think?
Listen, I mean, elections are tough. There's never a guarantee. You have to campaign hard, and you have to campaign in a way where you'll gain the trust and confidence of the people who you're asking to represent. All of the elected officials who you referenced, both on the Democratic side and the Republican side, have good records. They've been in. Many of them have a lot of experience, and I think would do well.
You know Ruskin? You know Ruskin and Kirk?
I know Kirk. If you pull up the list, I'll give you. I know Kirk. I know Tom Cross, Christine Radonio, having her campaign against my good friend Alexi Janulius, and Jim Durkin. I'm not really. I know of Ron Gidwitz and his background in business.
So if you had to choose a Republican to be the U.S. Senator, I know you would choose probably a Democrat, but if you had to choose, anybody on this list who would strike you better or worse than any of the others?
I think it would be unfair for me to
You're not going to get involved in the Republican side.
Just because I don't know all of them as well as others. You know, as I know Tom. You know, all of them, in my opinion, would probably be solid contenders on behalf of the Republican Party.
Quickly, just take a look at our list for Democratic governor. Assuming that Pat Quinn becomes the governor, and then in 2010, Pat would presumably seek re-election. Lisa Madigan, presumably our Attorney General, would be running. Bill Daley might, the brother of Mayor Daley. Dan Hines, State Comptroller. Alexi Janulius, your good friend, you say, the State Treasurer. Reverend Meeks could get in there, an African-American. Might, if there is only one African-American in a large field, that would certainly enhance the advantages or enhance the likelihood. Danny Davis. That's a list, formidable list of 7 Democrats. Who would you support in that list, or do you have your own?
You know, I think at this point you hear about all of the folks who are talking about it, but no one's really come out and said, "Hey, I'm going to be running for."
Assuming these folks are your choice,
for governor.
Assuming this is your choice, who would you go with?
I'm not, at this
You're not
point,
going to declare now?
I'm not going to declare. I mean, I have, you know, I'd like to have.
Anybody
my
you'd
own
want to add to the
process.
list? Anybody?
Well, I think, you know, heck, I mean, we don't know what Valerie Jarrett's going to do. What if she
might run for governor?
What if she decides to run for governor? What if there's a big push to support Valerie Jarrett for governor? We don't know.
We've dealt with the Senate seat. We dealt with the gubernatorial seat. That leaves us with the 5th congressional seat. Assuming Rahm Emanuel goes ahead and resigns and becomes chief of staff, there's some doubt now because of this. What do we call it? This nastiness about the unpleasantness that's been suggested about his. It's been suggested that he had 21 contacts with Governor Ron Blagojevich. We don't know that, just leaked.
But, you know, in this morning I was watching some of the Sunday shows, and there was one commentator who indicated that in and of itself would not be.
It wouldn't be damning.
No, it wouldn't. I mean,
Rod calls, if anybody knows Rod, I mean, Rahm calls maybe 400 people a day.
Right.
That's what he does. He just gets on the phone. You're probably getting called by him.
And as the future chief of staff, I mean, you would want to have some communications ostensibly between.
But 21 would be a relatively large number, and the question is, you just call up and say, "Here's 4 names," or "We like Valerie Jarrett there," and Rod says, "Well, what are you going to give me? Just appreciation." Well, what do you think Rahm would say?
Well, we don't know.
We don't know. But that's just it. But that's
and
just it.
You have to credit Senator-elect Barack Obama. I mean, our future president was very clear in that he was prepared to submit to the public a memo about what had actually taken place. And it was the U.S. Attorney's Office who actually had contacted the President-elect's office asking them to hold off on publishing that report.
Which we heard initially hold off to the 22nd, then recently it sounded like the President-elect said, he said hold off to the week of the 22nd. So by the time you're watching this, you'll probably know what those contacts were. But okay, assume Rahm goes ahead, he resigns, becomes chief of staff, 5th congressional seat is vacant. Alderman Manny Flores, you ready, fired up and ready to go to run for the 5th congressional seat?
I'm always fired up.
And ready to go?
And I'm always ready to go.
To use a phrasing of our president-elect.
Si se puede. Yes, you can.
Yes, we can. Yes, you can. You heard it first. He is running for 5th congressional. He said yes.
I said we should always believe it.
We should change it to yes, you can. Yes, I can. What is that? My Spanish is a little rusty.
Si se puede. Yes,
si se puede is yes, I can, or yes, we can?
Yes, I can. Okay. What I would say is, what I'm gonna say here today is that at this time I'm not running for the seat. I have been working.
You're not running as of this time, but would you consider it?
I don't know what the future is going to be, even for this particular.
Why not run? Why not run? Who do you think's better on those? We got a list of like 8 names.
Frankly, it's
Patrick
not.
O'Connor,
but
Mike
it's not
Quigley,
even
Sarah
for me. It's
Feigenholz,
not even an issue of who's running and who isn't. I think that if you're going to be engaging in any type of campaign, you have to engage it with a notion and a strong sense of why it is that you're doing it, based on what are you prepared to, how are you prepared to serve the people that you're asking to support? And
bailouts? Do you have strong views about bailouts?
No, I have strong views about the green economy. I have strong views about the initiatives that I've started.
Do you think Congress needs to be doing something about the green economy?
Absolutely.
Well, isn't that a reason to run them?
Well, it's also a reason to complete the work that I've been doing in the first ward. As you know, Jeff, we'll
get to that in a second. But before we get to the city and what you're doing in the green initiatives,
I feel very passionate about the green initiatives and feel very passionate about both local government and federal government. In
comprehensive immigration reform, do you feel passionate
Absolutely, we should have comprehensive
immigration
reform.
If you had to choose between working on comprehensive immigration reform in the Congress and green initiatives in the City Council, where would you go?
I haven't thought about it in those terms.
That's the question for you right now.
I've thought about it in terms of continuing the type of leadership that I've shown in the area of green economy and getting the green exchange up and running.
We are going to continue to speak. Time goes so fast. We're going to continue to speak as the credits roll. But I very much want to thank our guest, Alderman Manny Flores. We hope you'll come back. Sorry we didn't. So let me just be quiet and let you go. Tell us about the green initiatives real quick.
Well, it's about green collar jobs, 270,000 square foot facility. It'll be LEED's Platinum certification.
Where's that facility?
That is located on Maplewood and Diversey in the first ward.
And that's going to advance the cause of green initiatives.
Green collar jobs.
What are we talking green?
Well, we're talking about professional services. We're talking about manufacturing. We're talking about the full panoply, the very broad spectrum that this new green economy presents for our country, and I'm very passionate about it. We have some very unique projects, ones that I believe will be projects that our new president will be able to point to as clear examples of what we can do to transform our economy.
Go back real quickly to Barack Obama. An accommodator, or is he a reformer?
He's a heck of a leader, and I'm
not
going to label him because I don't believe in labels. I believe in getting the job done for people, and I believe in getting it in a way that you include people in a way that you really.
Will he have the troops out of Iraq in 16 months? Will he do that?
I don't have that crystal ball, Jeff. I will
tell you. Didn't he make that promise?
I think that if he makes a promise, he should stick by the promise. And I think what he will do is, as he promised in the campaign, is listen to his military advisors, listen to what's going on the ground, and also moving forward in stabilizing Iraq in a way where we can be inclusive, bring our partners in, making sure that we have democracy in the Middle East.
Are we going to have $1 trillion deficit, and is Barack Obama going to be okay with that $1 trillion deficit?
Well, I don't think anyone should be okay with it. I think we should show leadership in that area and try to undo what the Republicans have done in the last 8 years, bring that deficit, get that surplus, and using the green economy to forge us ahead in this new global economy that we're seeing. We have to regain our footing.
Is he right to support the bailout of the auto companies?
Well, he didn't support it, as you know.
He seemed to support it.
He's not the President of the United States right now.
Okay. Would you support the bailout of the auto companies if you were there?
We'd have to make sure that we have a strong economy. If we're going to bail anybody out, we need to make sure that that money comes in with some very clear standards of how it's going to help our economy grow sustainably for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
If you were there, would you put in Barack Obama?